Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about brainstorming. And brainstorming's super important because the designer's real role is ideas, right? And brainstorming is a way to formulate and formalize ideas. So hopefully today's talk will be a little bit shorter. It's allergy season here in Florida, so I'm all like, but uh, but yeah. So if you're a developer and you want to create a feature, it's very rare that someone will just say, "Hey, you go create that feature." What's more common is that you'll get all the designers together in a group and you'll try to come up with ways to solve a problem or solve a feature request. And in many cases, the brainstorming process kind of looks like this, where where someone's telling you what to do or saying like, "This is my idea and this is how we're going to do it." And those places generally are dysfunctional, but it happens. Um, but that's not really what we're talking about brainstorming. If you call a meeting a brainstorming and you get around and somebody ends up controlling the meeting, then it's not really brainstorming. Brainstorming was coined by Professor Alex Osborne in the 1950s in this book. It's called Applied Imagination. It's actually a very interesting book, but he coined the term brainstorming. Before that, it really wasn't a concept. Uh, and his brainstorming was not to create art, but to create solutions to business problems. And the idea for brainstorming is that a group will sit around and just generate ideas in kind of in a collective setting, and they'll record all these ideas, and then later they'll go around and sift out the idea, the gold out of the wheat from the chaff, if you will. Um, excuse me. And so that's the general idea of brainstorming, and really Osborne's rules of brainstorming, which I'll show you later in this presentation, haven't changed all that much from this book from the 1950s. But it's been the subject of a lot of professional research on whether the quality and quantity of ideas in brainstorming actually are effective. And one of the key studies about brainstorming found that, say, if you apply Osborne's group brainstorming techniques in a normal group setting, just like he does in Applied Imagination, let's say you get, I don't know, 55 ideas, and that's what the red bar on top represents there. But if you apply the brainstorming principles to individuals, and you have them brainstorm on their own and then come back together to present them, then you get a much better quantity of ideas. Now, that seems a bit counterintuitive, right? If individuals are sitting around, they're probably going to come up with the same ideas. The low-hanging fruit is the same for everybody, right? If I say let's make an adventure game, then a lot of people are just going to start jumping on the kind of cliches of the old LucasArts adventures or things like that rather than creating new ideas. And so if I say, oh, let's make a game like Sam and Max, and you say, oh, let's make a game like Sam and Max, then that's not really a unique idea. But the researchers found that applying these principles to yourself and doing a brainstorm by yourself and then coming back and presenting with the group actually produces about 33% more quantity of ideas. And really, that's what brainstorms are about. It's about quantity of ideas. And we'll get to the reason for that later. Um, so why is this? This seems a bit counterintuitive, right? If everybody does these group brainstorms according to Osborne's methods, but this is so clearly far and away a better way of generating quantity of ideas. I mean, why is that? How can we fix our brainstorm so that we have a better response rate? And so researchers went in and they did what they do. They tweak some variables and they try to find the reasons why for these things. And they generally found three reasons why a group brainstorm uh, is inferior to individual brainstorms. So the first one is quite easy to get your hands around. It's evaluation apprehension, and that's the kind of feeling of you're in a room. Let's say the creative director's in there, your boss is in there, and you're being judged by your ideas. Really, as a designer, your ideas are your bread and butter, right? So if you're going for quantity of ideas, that means generally you're going to throw out some bad ideas. Excuse me. And that's kind of the point of the brainstorm. You you don't really care if an idea is good or bad. You just want it to be appropriate, and then record it because it might spur on later ideas. But people found that even when they said, "Oh yeah, I don't really care what other people think about it," their behavior is kind of told the tale for them. That in situations where bosses and superior people were around, the rate at which people submitted ideas decreased, and when those bosses were away, it increased. So the fear of being evaluated for this is even if you interview somebody and they say, oh yeah, I work in a great workplace and it's really conducive to ideas. The evaluation apprehension is a subconscious fear, and it affects the quality of brainstorming. One thing to note before I go on, you would think that in an individual situation that this would be just as bad because you're creating these ideas and then you're submitting them and your boss might see the ones you submit, right? And they found that that wasn't exactly the case. That people, when these events were broken apart in time, that evaluation apprehension went away. That was kind of the jitters of the moment that forced people into this. So social loafing is another kind of fancy way of putting it, but it's the idea that you're sitting around and let's say there's a group of four, and one person is just bam, 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 coming out with these great ideas, and you sit back and you just let him go because he's coming out with great ideas. So he would be probably creating these ideas in the vacuum of individual brainstorming, but so would you. You would be doing it at the same time. So it's really effective. I'll just let that guy pedal, and that's why the picture of the tandem bike here. I'll just let that guy pedal, and I'll kind of ride that wave, and that's a pervasive problem in any sort of team and group environment. And it's something that you'll probably see in the program once you get into sort of team-based classes, is that it's not necessarily laziness, although it can be, to let somebody take the reins. But unless everybody's pedaling with with their full force, you're not going to get the best results. And so the psychologists call it social loafing, but you can see why that would affect group brainstorming. In individual brainstorming, however, you really don't know the quantity of ideas that somebody else is producing. So if I don't know that, if I don't know that Professor Acosta's put out a list of 100 ideas, I might think that 12 ideas is great. That's a pretty good amount. But if I did know that he was doing it, then maybe I'd go, well, what, that's fine. I'll just let him do it and whatever. And the same to turn that around a bit. If he did 12 ideas and I'm banging out 40, I don't really know that I can put the brakes on because he only did 12. So. And the third one is production blocking, and this one's a little bit harder to kind of wrap your head around. It's the physical problem of putting people in a space. Cognitively, we can only really listen to one person at a time. So if we're spending 10 minutes on a brainstorm, I can only and your idea takes 5 minutes to explain, then really nobody else is going to get to go for those 5 minutes. And that's why I have the picture of the people in line here. We can only really serve one person at a time. And there's other reasons that are really physical reasons for this. Say, you're going so fast that the person that's recording can't write that fast. These really you end up bottlenecking in the group brainstorm around one or more constraints, and that's production blocking. So really, these three things are the reasons why group brainstorming, and especially if you're not aware of these things, if you're aware of these things, then you can make conscious efforts to kind of halt at it. But if you're not aware of these things, then you're going to have problems because and you won't even know that you have the problems is the sad thing, because you won't have anything to compare it to. Like when you go back to this graph, gee, we did 55 ideas in a group of 6. That's pretty good, right? Well, if you would have done it individually, you would have had 80, and that's even better. So let's move forward. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules of brainstorming and the rules of these come from applied imagination, but I'll kind of comment on how studies have shown them to be effective or not effective, and how my own experience in industry has shown them to be effective or not effective, specifically in being a game designer. So really the first, and this is the cardinal rule of brainstorming, is to not criticize ideas. So if I'm saying, we're going to make an adventure game, right? I used that example earlier. And I say, oh, well, the adventure game should be like a first-person shooter. It's kind of the knee-jerk reaction to go, well, no, because adventure games aren't like that. But if you do that, then one, the person that originally said the idea is going to feel kind of shamed and stop and kind of decrease his output because you all just poo-pooed his idea. But secondly, these ideas can influence each other in aggregate, and we'll get to that in a second. The focus of the brainstorm is not necessarily to have good ideas, and that's a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because you want to have good ideas. Like at the end of the day, you need good ideas to work with. But that's not really the idea of the brainstorm. The idea of the brainstorm is to come up with a lot of ideas and then sift through it to find the quality. So at the time, you just want to be firing out things that are generally that are appropriate. And when I say appropriate, I don't mean that they're good ideas. I just mean that they make sense. So if I'm saying we should make an adventure game and you say ice cream, that's not an idea. That's not an appropriate idea. It doesn't make sense. And we welcome strange ideas. So the reason we get together and brainstorm is so that we can access that little wedge of kind of the hard to reach ideas. Everybody can pick the low hanging fruit. That's easy. That's easy to grasp. But when we get together to brainstorm, we want to come up with odd ideas, because those odd ideas might inform more mainstream ideas. And that brings us to kind of the central strength of brainstorming, is that ideas have to build from each other. So, well, they don't have to, but they should build from each other. So the reason we want strange ideas is because they might come up with ideas that end up being feasible. I remember tons of brainstorming sessions when I was at EA. We were coming up with all these ideas for different ways that we could leverage the licenses we have, because those were very expensive. So they had the NFL license and the NCAA license and licenses to all these mascots and things like that. And the low-hanging fruit of that was always, let's make a mascot challenge game where there's a bunch of mini games and you play as mascots. And that's a fine idea, all right? But it's pretty low-hanging. It's something pretty much everybody can come up with. But when we brainstorm about that, we would start coming up with minigame ideas for that. And those minigame ideas really build on the kind of low-hanging fruit idea of, let's do a mascot minigame. And actually, one of those minigame ideas ended up becoming a mechanic in Madden. Now, it certainly wasn't the same. It wasn't the people in the brainstorming sessions idea to come up with a mechanic that would actually be used in a simulation game, certainly. But the idea built from some crazy ideas about, mascots in log rolling competitions and things like that. So, did I say Madden? I did say Madden. It was NFL Street it made it into, but nonetheless. These ideas build from each other, and you never really know where that inspiration is going to strike. So if you keep just firing out these ideas and using some of the better parts of the ideas to trigger subconsciously different ideas, then that's where the brainstorm succeeds, right? Now, in an individual brainstorming session, this is a little bit tougher, right? You can only build from your own ideas. Where a group brainstorming session shines, and why I think, personally, I think, and it's my opinion, why group brainstorming is so popular is because you can build from each other's ideas. And that usually brings into the fold some different things that you just never would have gotten on your own. And I don't know why. Well, I have a theory why, but I don't know why this is so endemic to group brainstorming, but it really is. Is that when we have people of different business ranks in a meeting, we tend to treat them kind of in accordance to their station. So if you've ever heard of the Stanford Prison Experiment, and I really didn't expect to be going into the Stanford Prison Experiment in this talk, but what the hell. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, they took a bunch of subjects and they separated them into prisoners and guards. And they weren't really prisoners and guards, they were just subjects in this experiment. But over time, they started filling those roles of what they expected, what they expected guards and prisoners to act like. So the guards would treat the prisoners like they were criminals, even though they were just normal subjects like themselves. And so, well, let's bring this back to brainstorming. Is when you have the creative director in there, often the junior people will be like, well, okay, I'll just let that guy go because he's the creative director and who the hell am I? I'm just this junior guy. And that's not the point of the brainstorm. The point of the brainstorm is to have a quantity of relevant ideas. And so anybody can do that. If you weren't expected to, then you wouldn't be invited to the brainstorm at all, right? And so a lot of times there's kind of the opposite effect of not being introverted but being too extroverted, where somebody is just on roll and really taking over for everybody. And you get into that production blocking instance where someone is just taking up all the time and really not breathing and just kind of controlling the meeting. And it's really hard to build from each other's ideas if it's only one person doing the talking. So these are the 5 rules that you really need to follow, and they come from applied imagination. So they're 60 plus years old, but they work as long as you keep them at heart. And at Tiburon, when we worked there, we had some of these like posted on the walls of the meeting rooms, just so you would remember. We had a little like short order cook bell that you would ding whenever somebody broke the rules, but people didn't actually enforce that. But that was the idea, was that if somebody started being critical, ding, and then they would go, oh shit, yeah, I broke a rule. But really, if you follow these, that's kind of the best way to do it. And if you're looking for quantity overall, really the individual brainstorming method will give you the quality overall. So let me show you a piece of software that helps in doing brainstorms, and it's called a mind map. Let me get out of here. And this is MindNode. It's a free Mac-based piece of software, but there's Mind Manager on Windows and there's some free ones on Windows. I don't really know them all, but I just got this one because it's free and I would show you. So the idea is to have kind of a non-linear representation of all your ideas. So if you want to make a brainstorm about minigame ideas, you can churn them out pretty much as fast as you can type by doing this. So if I keep hitting enter, I'm going to add new nodes to this. So if I start making them based on sports, just as fast as I can type, oops, I overwrote that one. As fast as I can type, I can make new nodes, and they'll appear kind of where you want them to appear, and you can drag them around generally, put them in different places, and then you can build off of them. So let's see, what's a good one to build off of? Okay, so football, minigame ideas for football. Well, there's a lot of things you can do. So you can do a 4-yard dash, and I'm just going to start building off of these things. And these are different minigames that we had in Madden 1 year, and then some other ideas. So there's things we did in the streets, and there's. So as fast as I can type, I can add these new things. So if you're in a meeting with a bunch of people and you have one secretary that's recording the ideas, you can write these down pretty fast. And kind of the benefit that you have with this versus Word, excuse me, or any word processor, is that you kind of see how the ideas are related. So I see that I could have made a single line in a word processor for all these different things, but I wouldn't have seen how they were related visually. And really, when you look at a picture, you access different parts of your brain as you do when you look at a list. So for designers, it tends to be a lot nicer to kind of look at these pictures. And then once you're done with the brainstorm, then you can go in and kind of select some and say, this node was pretty good, so I'll make it a red one or whatever, and that will kind of direct the eye towards the ideas that we want to develop further and use. So that's mind mapping, and it's very simple. You generally can save these as images, or in Mind Manager for Windows, which is what I use professionally, you can save these as ordered lists. So you can import them to Word files and things like that, or you can save them as pictures. But those help with brainstorming, and they may help if you're going to be doing brainstorms in teams here in the program. You might want to think about using that because it's a pretty good way of recording ideas. So here's your list of things you need to do. And it's very similar to what you'll see in pretty much every video in this class. Read the book, watch the videos, do the playing comment. Games this week are pretty cool, I think. And you have the quiz, which should be open now, depending on when you're watching this. So let's talk about the quiz a little bit. So hidden quiz content, oh my god, you made it to the end of this video, so you get to see some things. Most of the quiz will be, well, I won't say most. Some of the quiz will be about taking a game design document and finding out what's wrong with it. And so the things I said in the video, the things I say in the book, and general common sense. So I may not have said everything that in these videos or in the book that's wrong with it, but things like, run-on sentences or egregious spelling mistakes or egregious grammar mistakes, those things count as errors because they make it harder to read. Really, the guiding principle that you want to use when you're doing the test and when you're making game design documents in general for industry is that you want clarity. And so everything that obscures clarity, makes it harder to read, makes it overly long, doesn't serve the point of making the thing, is pretty much a mistake. So when you're looking at the game design documents, that's kind of the general rule to follow. Okay? So email me if you need anything, and don't freak out about the quiz, because I think you're going to do great on it. Next week, we're talking about Excel, and we're talking about math, a lot of math. So don't freak out about that either. My kind of reason for doing this is to show you. Well, my reason for doing this one is because designers use math all the freaking time. But my way of showing you Excel is that Excel is going to do the hard math for you. You just have to know how to set it up. And so that's what we're going to do next week. Math and Excel. So have a good one. Do your playing comment if you haven't, and I'll see you.